Peace and blessings, dear FBA family. I am Dr. Muhammad, and these are the Dr. Muhammad Files. This podcast and subsequent series will be centered on FBA scholarship mixed with topics and issues of the day that concern the FBA community. So, who is Dr. Muhammad? Dr. Muhammad is an FBA on both sides. My father and his side of the family, going back to the early 1700s, are from Casey, South Carolina. My mother's father's side is from Kosciuszko, Mississippi, and her mother's side is from Mobile, Alabama, both dating back to the early 1700s. I grew up in a city 30 miles west of Detroit in Ypsilanti, Michigan. I'm a recent PhD graduate, so I decided to do a podcast based on FBA scholarship mixed with topics and issues of the day that concern the FBA community, because I saw a need to expand the FBA community scholarship. Many podcasters focus on just topics or issues of the day, which is fine, but I felt we needed more scholarship as well, like that of our dear brother, Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. So let's get started. Again, in this episode, we dive into a critique of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI efforts that fail to center FBA faculty. In my dissertation entitled Experiences of Foundational Black American Male Faculty, Exploring Anti-Black Racism at Predominantly White Institutions of Higher Learning, one of the themes that came out of the study was institutional and cultural influences on personal and professional growth. Participants shared similar views on the impact of institutional cultures on their personal and professional development. These challenges emerged from the participants' shared experiences with perceptions of inclusivity, academic contributions, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. Participants expressed varying opinions on the institution's approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion within the FBA faculty experience, with most participants feeling although DEI programs are in place, inclusivity was either lacking or not robust to be effective, at least specifically for FBA faculty. For instance, Malcolm, which is a pseudonym I used for one of my participants, asserted the institution has addressed diversity, equity, and inclusion for FBA faculty mainly through individual efforts rather than institutional mandates, with Black faculty often organizing and funding their own events, receiving general mentoring programs also available to white faculty, while also facing additional burdens we call Black tax, due to extra commitments to the Black community and the need to constantly defend their research. For those of you who don't know what Black taxes are those extra duties and commitments that Black faculty endure without being compensated. For example, when I did my study, I needed FBA male faculty to participate in the study. Although they were very busy, they felt they should help another FBA out because a lot of staff will not help FBA males out. Malcolm also remarked on DEI efforts. When it comes to actions taken by institutions for Black faculty, I haven't observed any concrete efforts. They may claim they want to recruit Black faculty, but this intention isn't reflected in their practices regarding recruitment, retention, and tenure. Du Bois, another participant, along with most participants, noted while DEI programs exist, they are ineffective in fostering inclusion, specifically for FBA faculty. He went on to say, the institutions has superficially addressed diversity, equity, and inclusion in the FBA faculty experience through celebratory events like Faculty of Color celebrations, minority celebrations, but fails to acknowledge or address systemic racism and anti-Blackness towards FBA faculty specifically. They use legislative changes as an excuse they being institutions, use legislative changes as an excuse to avoid meaningful equity and inclusion efforts. So, using legislative changes as an excuse to avoid meaningful equality and inclusion efforts, as you can see from the participants' mouths themselves, the DEI programs are superficial, meaning they don't really want to institute DEI specifically for FBA male faculty. What's interesting in the study, I found DEI is most effective for non-FBAs like white Latinos, white Asians, melanated first-generation immigrants such as African and Caribbeans. This shows, FBA family, this shows DEI programs, as with other programs like affirmative action, that are being dismantled by institutions under the guise of, well, legislation says we can no longer implement them, so we have to dismantle them. In reality, FBA family, it was never being used for FBA. But what happens is the dominant society uses the plight of FBA to advance all other groups, while FBAs get nothing but chastisement for not voting blue no matter who. So, in conclusion, we've exposed how DEI programs serve everyone but FBAs, and why it's time to rethink and reclaim our own approach to justice, equality, and empowerment. Because if we don't call it out, no one else will. This is my first podcast, so please like it and share it. Also leave your comments below with feedback, and I will try to make my podcast better in the future. Signing off, my name is Dr. Muhammad, and these are the Dr. Muhammad Files.